Hello, and thank you for writing the third and final essay related to this experiment. The title of the essay was What are the pros and cons of consumerism? Looking at the essay, I can see that you've written a little bit less than the other essays, which is fine because consumerism, I suppose, is a topic that's not talked about every day. So it could be quite unfamiliar, which could be a possible reason why there's not much written about it. Which is fine. Looking at the structure and the content of the essay, again, as always, you have a very clear introduction. You have some clear paragraphs outlining the pros or advantages of consumerism. You have highlighted your opinion, reason, and example, and then you have some disadvantages in separate paragraphs, and finally your conclusion. The content of what you've actually said is relative to consumerism. You've used some very good phrases there as well, and idioms, which is very nice to see. So now for the final time on Screencast-O-Matic, I'm going to take a closer look at your discourse markers and see what we've done. Okay? Consumerism means all the time buying stuff's what you don't need it. Now, I will show you that the desire to buy new things often has its pros and cons. Okay, so this is your introduction, and you've started with now. And this has prepared your reader, which is myself, that now this is what you're going to do. And you've prepared your reader for the next bit of information. So thank you for that. That's very good. And you've also included your punctuation. Very good. Firstly, so here you're telling me that you're going to start one of a list of items when you start with firstly. Very good. And you've got your punctuation. A pro of consumerism has the psychological benefit. When you buy something, you are happy for a certain time. Now, You've continued by saying when you are happy, for example, and just as a thought here, what I've done for you is because you've already got when you buy something you are happy, instead of repeating that when you are happy, possibly there could be a discourse marker, because what you go on to say is an example or a result of what you've just talked about. You say, for example, you can work better, and when you work better, your boss will be happy with you. So this is where you have included a result and an example of what you have previously talked about. Therefore, instead of repeating this part, it might not be a bad idea to use a consequence discourse marker. Okay, so have a think. Just think, what discourse marker could you use? Because at upper intermediate level, it's very important that we try not to get in the habit of repeating ourselves and just taking up some extra words, okay? But that's very good use, yes, of your example discourse marker there and the punctuation, very good. The second pro, okay, is that the economy will grow up. So here you're saying you started with firstly, and now we're moving on to a different point. Just a little point. Here we started with firstly. So instead of saying the second, what other discourse marker could we use that means now I'm going to talk about the second point, but following the same structure as firstly? Okay, think what other discourse marker we could use instead of the words the second. What other discourse marker would also talk about a second point we're talking about to follow from the same structure? Pro is that the economy will grow up. When the economy grow up, so again, because there is a repetition of what you've already talked about, again, it might not be a bad idea to use a discourse marker, because what you go on to say is as a result or consequence of your previous sentence. What discourse marker do you think we could use to highlight a consequence or a result? Okay, that might be a benefit. And once you have included this extra discourse marker, then obviously you would delete the italic words because we don't need those anymore. When the economy grow up, the government can invest the money to the education or to the health system. Okay, but So now we've moved on to a different paragraph, and this is preparing your reader or listener that now we've changed course. We're talking about something different, most probably the disadvantages. Thank you. And also you have your punctuation. Very good. The first con is the guilty pleasure you have when you are a shopaholic, or when you want to keep up with the Joneses. You've used some very good vocabulary, very good phrases, very good idioms, keeping up with the Joneses. Yes, well done. Starting with a very relevant and good discourse marker. You want to buy every day something when you are a shopaholic, but you haven't enough money. Do you have to create a lot of debt? Okay. So just a little point, if you remember in your very first essay, we talked about trying not as much as possible to repeat the same discourse marker, especially if it's going to be one after the other. Okay, because this is very close together. If there is at all any possibility that you would change one of these two to a different vocabulary, a different word that would have the same function. You're starting the sentence or the clause with but, which means now, listener or reader, I'm changing direction. I'm going to give you a different side to the coin, a different aspect. Please try and use a different discourse marker so we're not repeating the same thing. And also here, I've highlighted this part. Now, I'm not entirely sure if you meant to use the word do, or if in fact you are trying to use the word so. Haven't enough money, so you have to create a lot of debt. I'm not sure exactly what you were trying to say here, so would you kindly clarify that? I haven't corrected it because I wasn't sure if you meant you haven't enough money, do you? And you have to create a lot of debt. So I wasn't sure. If you would kindly clarify that, please. You have to also create debt. Very good. So you're giving extra information here to what you've already said, adding more information. You have to also create debt when you will keep up with the Joneses because you want to buy the latest things. Absolutely. Giving your opinion and then the reason for your opinion, why you want to, why you have created all of this debt is because obviously you've bought all the latest things. Very good. Moreover, so I know that we're still talking about the disadvantages here, and you've got the punctuation. Very good. Moreover, another con is that the consumerism damage the environment because they produce in mass in China, and the products have to be sent all over the world, what makes a lot of exhaust fumes. Yes, so once again, you've given your opinion, and then you've given the reason for your opinion. But as you know very well, we have many discourse markers that have the same function as the word because. You're giving a reason for what has previously been said in these sentences. So would you kindly substitute one of these two with a different discourse marker that still has the same function of giving a reason? Other discourse markers, as you know, could be due to the fact that, since, any of these could also be substitutes for the word because. Again, we don't want to use the same discourse marker one after the other. So, now I know you're summarizing, you're giving your final conclusion, or you're giving your final result of what's been said. So, very good with the punctuation. We see that the consumerism has his advantages and his disadvantages. I think the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. Very good. Yes. So this is your final conclusion. It's the result of what you've written so far, and you've started with a very good discourse marker. Well done. So a little brief note that I'm going to include here is try not to repeat parts of the previous sentence. This can be managed by using a discourse marker, which is what we talked about here. Instead of repeating what has been said previously, we can just use a discourse marker and then jump to the rest of the sentence without having to repeat ourselves. Okay, so that's what's been mentioned. And also, please try to use a variety of different discourse markers for the same function. And this is relating to because or but that we were talking about, trying to use a variety of discourse markers that hopefully would do the same function, other words as well. Okay, so I've just highlighted that in red. All in all, this is very good. I can see that in these 3 essays you seriously have improved. I can see that, first of all, you're using a variety of discourse markers compared to the first essay. You're definitely including a lot more of the punctuation when you're using the discourse markers in the correct places, and you are using appropriate discourse markers as well. Thank you very, very much for taking part in this experiment, and I look forward to the altered version as much as possible to this essay, and hopefully I look forward to our conference in the class. Thank you very much.